It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show. I'm Scott Jagow, joined this week by the Paulick Report's Bloodstock editor, Joe Nevills. Ray has the week off. Coming up, we're going to talk about a new wager at Santa Anita. But first, Joe, let's start with the news this week that Keeneland, through Equibase, has conducted a pilot test on a GPS system for tracking workouts. Sounds promising. What's your take on it?
Well, anytime that I go to breeze shows during the 2-year-old and training sales, I'll see a horse come down the lane, and it's often very quiet. And when he crosses a pole, I'll hear 30 different stopwatches making 30 different beeps at 30 different times. And chances are, most of those aren't going to be getting the exact timing. Now, I'm in support of any kind of technological advances to make this more accurate. I think it's the kind of thing that, just like any kind of new technology you're going to have to bring in, there's going to be some adjustments, some getting used to, some bugs that are going to need worked out. But I'm for it.
Yeah, I think maybe logistical changes, having to maybe the trainer or the horse go to a station first before the workout starts or something like that. I know there's going to be some pushback because there's always pushback in the horse racing business.
Right.
But I've sat there at 6 o'clock in the morning with clockers, and I know how insane it is. They do a phenomenal job, to be honest. I don't know how they do it. They're there with their stopwatch, and there are horses all over the track. It's not like they have signs on them saying, I'm so-and-so. No. It's, you can tell what their trainer is by their saddle cloth most of the time. But, you need to know the markings of the horse to know who it is. And then during one workout, another one's going off at the same time. So it's chaos, and you need technology to calm that down. It's called a public workout for a reason. We need to have that information, and it needs to be accurate. And right now, there are a lot of holes in the system.
Absolutely. And I'm fascinated by some of the other features that it offers. I've read some things about how it might offer information on stride length, gallop out, things that are still sort of eyeball test kind of things that we might be able to quantify with numbers and science. And when it comes to getting that data in there and trying to understand the product, I'm on the side of numbers and science.
It's going to be far more accurate once every horse gets microchipped, which the process started in 2017. So that will really help things. As you said, there'll be some adjustments. And they've started using the GPS for timing races at certain tracks. And there's still some bugs there, too, because with the beam system, as it currently is at most tracks, that is really, really accurate. Unless a flock of birds triggers it or some random thing happens that you're not expecting. The GPS, I believe, there's still some human involvement in getting it started. But once you have the microchips, I believe some of that will go away and it'll be much more accurate.
Yeah, right now we're on step 1, and you can't get to a finished product until you reach that step 1. And I think it's a really good learning experience, what we've seen at Keeneland recently and earlier in the year at Golden Gate Fields when they did the initial pilot study. I think this is a great first step, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes in the future.
What do you think about this idea? Let us know. We have a poll on our website at paulickreport.com. Are you in support of this new technology for workouts? All right, Joe, let's move on to a new wager that's going to be happening at Santa Anita called the Roulette. It's a bit of a misnomer. I mean, it's based off of the idea of red, green, and black. So you get to choose a color, and inside that color is a group of horses inside the race. So let's say there's 9 horses in a race. You might have 3 red horses, 3 black horses, and 3 green horses. What do you think about this?
I think they need to go even further into it. I want to see a separate window at these tracks that is a roulette betting window where you have a wheel at the end of it and you spin the wheel and you're beholden to whatever color that you get on it. If the green consists of 3 zippy chippies and you spin that wheel and you get the green color, then that's what you're getting. Because, if we're going for the gimmick wager, let's go all the way into it, full gimmick wager. So it would be a nightmare to get in before the shutoff times, you'd have to have a separate line so you wouldn't get all the regulars frustrated at you. But if you're going to have some fun with it, let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the first gimmick wager to ever be introduced into horse racing. And there is a trail of ones that have not worked out. I like the concept because it is something different for new people
Yes.
that might, I've taken people to the track and their eyes glaze over when I start explaining the daily racing form. And I think there's just a certain type of person. When we all started, before we got into handicapping, we all started from the beginning. I mean, I didn't know anything. I made myself learn. And not everyone's going to do that. Mm-hmm. So this wager is not for that person. This wager is for someone who goes to the track, has a hard time, grasping or doesn't want to grasp all the information that's thrown in front of you, and just make it simple. I'll pick a color, I'll get a couple of horses, and hopefully one of them wins.
And it's, seeing some of the early response, it's easy to sort of make gags about the roulette wager because of the basis of the name itself, the marketing is kind of interesting. It brings about the idea of one form of gambling to bring about another form of gambling. But I'd be curious to see what the public perception would be of the roulette wager. If it had something different, not related to, just call it the team wager, and you're betting on team A, team B, or team C, if the public would receive it any differently, or if they'd still think this is something that's going to potentially join the graveyard of deceased gimmick wagers such as the Matrix wager, the over-under, the Magna 5 back in the day, the National Racing Club Sweepstakes Rainbow 6 back at Portland Meadows a few years ago.
Yeah.
There's been a few that, will let their memories remain, but we'll see where this one goes. It'll be interesting to see what kind of pools it gets.
Yeah, I think this pools will probably be pretty small, to be honest. I'd love to see it get a little bit of traction. I think they're kind of mixing things up here a little bit. They're saying roulette, which kind of has a connotation of randomness to it,
Yes.
and it's not really that. It's more akin to sports wagering, actually. Like you said, maybe they should call it the team wager and have the teams, because the odds are going to be closer to sports betting. You're not going to get 20-1 on the red team, more than likely. I mean, I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but you're probably not. It's, because there's only 3 teams. So pari-mutually, the odds are going to be pretty low on all 3 of them. More akin to when you're betting one team against another in sports. I think they should take it in that direction and drop the name roulette. I think it's confusing.
Yeah. But you know what? Sometimes it feels good to just cash your ticket. If it's your first time coming to the track and you have something where you have one ticket and you have a full third of the field in there and you can hit a thing, maybe you come back next time.
All right, Joe, you're our guy on Bloodstock, so I want to ask you, we're getting toward the end of the year, and sometimes there's some pretty close races when it comes to the Stallion lists. So I'm wondering where we are right now with just a couple weeks left in the year.
Well, in the general sire race, Kitten's Joy, a resident of Hillendale Farms, looks pretty safe. He's got $18 million in progeny earnings on the year, safely ahead of Candy Ride, who's got about $17.5 million. A lot of that came from Gunrunner winning the Pegasus World Cup earlier this year and his one start in 2018. The closest race that we have so far is for 2-year-old sires. So this is all sires of all 2-year-old runners on the year. It's a race that right now is by less than $20,000
Wow.
splits first and second place. Candy Ride, sire of Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, Game Winner, has $2.4 million, $2.45 million, I should say, being specific there, just ahead of Into Mischief, who is $2.43 million. So we're talking about winning a decent maiden purse, or hitting a stakes race somewhere. A few races, a few efforts. Somebody finishing 5th somewhere might end up making the difference in here. Not too far behind, also with $2 million to the name, is Scat Daddy, who is led by Skitter Scatter among the 2-year-olds this year. And in 4th is the leading freshman sire of the year, Cross Traffic, who is the sire of Jaywalk, has just a little over $2 million in earnings this year. So it's going to be a pretty tight race down to the wire, especially among the exacta.
Should be fun to watch. All right, Joe, thanks so much for joining me on the Friday show this week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.